exclusive SiriusXM channel. Complete concerts, fan reaction, and more. Sphere Week on Fish Radio, now through Monday, channel 29 in the car, and on the SiriusXM app. Get closer to everything that moves you wherever you are.
Imagine a long road trip where the designated DJ isn't forced to flip from station to station, avoiding commercials and trying desperately to find a signal, where you're not forced to resort to endless rounds of the license plate game to kill time. Stop imagining and start listening to commercial-free music from nearly every genre, coast to coast. Subscribe to SiriusXM, and your music stays with you wherever you hit the interstate or take the back roads. Call 844-711-8800 to activate your radio now.
Feel the energy. That's the loud bang. And the impact of SiriusXM Octane. Immerse yourself in a community of hard rock extremists. World premieres, live performances, and artist takeovers.
A giant thank you to the entire Octane community for keeping rock alive.
To hear Octane, activate your radio now. Call 844-711-8800 or head to SiriusXM.com/go.
Amazing moments happen so much at SiriusXM. We want you to see them. SiriusXM Video lets you watch your favorite SiriusXM shows on the SiriusXM app. Groundbreaking interviews, amazing in-show moments, behind-the-scenes footage, live performances, all come to life in a way you only imagined before. Plus, you can create your own personalized Pandora station based on the artists you love. And hear over 100 extra channels filled with ad-free music for every mood or occasion. Get your first 6 months of our Platinum plan for only $8.33 per month, plus fees and taxes. Just call 844-711-8800 to take advantage of this amazing offer.
There you go now.
I think I'm recording.
Oh, let's see. Let's see. There you go now.
I think I'm recording.
Oh, let's see. Let's see.
If you've been thinking about buying a home, you need to be in the zone, the home buying zone. You need a game plan to win in this great real estate market. The Big C team at Equity Zone Mortgage has all your bases covered. Whether you're a first-time home buyer, purchasing your dream home, refinancing, consolidating debt, or even considering a reverse mortgage, contact the Big C team at Equity Zone Mortgage today. They have the lowest closing costs and they'll close your loan on time, guaranteed, or they'll pay your first mortgage payment. And they even have a 3.5% purchase down payment grant that can get you into a home with little money out of your pocket. It doesn't get more clutch than that, folks. Score big on the biggest purchase of your life. Call Equity Zone Mortgage today at 1-800-772-8624. That's 1-800-772-8624. Or apply online at equityzonemortgage.com and tell them Big C sent you, as heard on the Big C Sports Podcast. License number 018-14868.
Rondo Deportes, Bonjour, Vidi Vidi Vici. Let's get ready to rumble! Welcome to the show. My name is Charlton of Big C Sports. This is Big C Sports coming to you worldwide on the Big C Sports Network, on the Double A Network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to me and people who love the universe. And that would include you. What a beautiful day in the neighborhood. A beautiful day in the neighborhood. Won't you be my neighbor? Shut up! It's 3 o'clock in the morning. You fool! Hey, well, I'm just trying to bring the neighborhood together on a beautiful April 19th, 2024. Today's show is sponsored by your Northern California Cadillac dealers, home of the all-new Cadillac Escalade, the standard of the world. When you go by and test drive yours, tell them to sit you where the good Lord split you. And hopefully the good Lord didn't split you too wide. If that makes sense to you, you can follow Big C Sports on 29 podcast applications all over the universe. Streaming on 4 TV platforms, Xfinity, Comcast TV, Apple TV, Roku TV, and Amazon Fire TV. We do appreciate that. I always produce the show. I direct the topics. I broadcast all the shows. I do all the sound effects based on the platform provided by the agency. We could all use more laughter in our lives in a new app I'm adding to this. You fool! That's what I'm going to add. You fool! I don't know if that makes sense, but sometimes it's appropriate. And then, as I say, the commercials are done. The stats are provided. The storytelling. I even do the play-by-play. De'Aaron Fox for 3! Yes! Sacramento Kings down in New Orleans taking on the New Orleans Pelicans. Light the beam! Reparations! Light the beam! Reparations! Trying to get the state capitol to start thinking about reparations because the Reparations Task Force is right there in the same city with the Sacramento Light the Beam team. All fair and love awards. Then the show's uploaded to 29 podcast platforms out of New York City. Goes all over the world. And then 4 TV platforms. As I said, Xfinity, Comcast TV, Apple TV, Roku TV, and Amazon Fire TV. Really do appreciate that. And then number 10, I never missed a show since starting Big C Sports with the crew back in the days at Salem Media. And now we have people who miss a day of practice. I'm not talking about the game. I'm talking about we have people who miss practice. Well, I never miss a day, even through joy, pain, sunshine, and rain. And that's what I love about doing Big C Sports Podcast. I always show up because the show must go on even with this new platform. It's called Chat GPT. And sometimes it tries to do the show for me. I might say, I want to turn left. It say, no, Big C, turn right. Why do I look like arguing with a computer? I don't want to argue with a computer. But they built them so strong, you know, they can turn us off. And I got to create my own Teddy Pendergrass switch. For those of you may have to have the kids leave the room. Because when Teddy Pendergrass, with his AI, he said, turn off the lights, and light a candle. You see, there's something I've been wanting to do to you, baby. And if that didn't work, Teddy would say, turn them off. And that get him every time. He always turn off the lights, if that makes sense, yeah. But I'll never turn off the lights on the Veterans Crisis Hotline. They really are experienced helping veterans and their loved ones get help. You know anybody going through issues, pick up the phone. Call 800-273-8255. That's 800-273-8255. Or you can text 838-255. That's 838-255. If you're online, simply go to veteranscrisisline.net. That's veteranscrisisline.net. And when you do, you want to give us some praise because we all need somebody to lean on. And it's always nice leaning on somebody when somebody's leaning back. Really do appreciate that. Also want to say thank you to Xfinity, Comcast TV, and Comcast Spotlight Effect TV for presenting Big C Sports to the universe. Just like in Genesis 1:3, where God said, reparations now, reparations forever. And then he said, let there be light. And some of my pastor friends, they don't like that. They say, Big C, I've been looking through the Bible all my life. I've never seen reparations. I said, well, Pastor, it does say reparations. That's what Genesis chapter 1, verse 3 means. It means let there be light. You got to shine a light on the subject, and that's what I want to do with Big C Sports Podcast. I got some NBA basketball because I know some of you guys, you can't wait to stand up for the tip-offs and light the beam. You know, I want to light the beam on reparations. I do it all, sports and real news. It's real talk. That's why I say Big C Sports Podcast is real talk, and I love doing the show. I got some NBA basketball tonight. You got some teams that are jockeying for position because they all want to try to get to win that championship, if that makes sense to you. But more than winning the championship, they want respect. What did we say? R-E-S-P-E-C-T. Well, I know what I want. I want R-E-P-A-R-A-T-I-O-N-S. Reparations now, reparations forever. And that's respect, if that makes sense to you. I want to say what I do when I deal with Big C Sports Podcast. You know, I love what we're doing this time of year. Got some NBA basketball that's dribbling all up and down the hardwood trying to win a championship. But I also take the time to pause and I pay homage to the California Reparations Task Force because a mind is a terrible thing to waste. And I say what reason I talk so much about reparations. Sometimes when you have a calling, you got to answer that calling. I remember at a Reparations Task Force meeting in Sacramento last year, I spoke at a reparations rally. There were a few hundred people there in the meeting, and that's the one where I fell down the stairs. And it was caught on videotape. But I couldn't find a lawyer to take it. Maybe that's why my knee hurts. I thought I hurt my knee when I was out jogging. Maybe it's from an old pain when I fell down the stairs. You know, I got to see if I can get that re-edited to the lawyer's conversation. Maybe that's why my knee hurts. I fell down the stairs. You fool! Be careful when you're walking down the flight of stairs. Well, I thought they should have more warning signs for walking down the stairs, but that's my story. I take it with it. However, I will say the Associated Press. Who's the Associated Press, Big C? You can Google it. They're the largest media outlet in the United States, and their stories go all over the world. It was back in March 29th, 2023. I got a call from J.D. Hart. It was ring, ring. Hello? Hi, is this Charlton Curry? Yes, this is Charlton. How can I help you? This is J.D. Hart of the Associated Press. I said, well, how'd you get my number? She said, oh, we have our ways. I said, well, how can I help you? She said, I heard you speak on reparations, and I wanted to get your thoughts for the Associated Press. I said, if you heard me speak, you know my thoughts. I said, reparations now, reparations forever. And I said, I love talking about that, but I gotta keep it real. I've had some people tell me, man, Big C, you gonna sound like a fool. Keep talking about reparations. You should just tell us who won the game. That's what people want to hear. Who won the game and light the beam? But I'm telling you, there's more black Americans in California that will benefit from reparations than watching a game. We got our whole society hoodwinked on. Can't wait to see the game. And the people who own these teams where you can watch the game, a lot of them, their family got the Homestead Act back in the 1860s. And where the United States government gave over 300 million acres of land to white Americans and even white Europeans. And that was after slavery from 1619 to 1865. So with all that money and wealth and land that was bequeathed from generation to generation, how do you think some of their families got the money to own the team and be in that echelon of income? It was robbed from African Americans. And I want to make sure I do my part. But she wrote the article. It was picked up by the Associated Press, NBC News, CBS News, ABC News. And it says, California reparations. Charlton Curry of Sacramento, California, who discusses reparations on his Big C Sports podcast, that cash payments are necessary and that money talks. So if the Associated Press wrote an article about Big C Sports podcast, what they write about you? For you naysayers. I do the stutter for Joe Biden said he stuttered. I don't stutter, but a good old boy said if you don't speak so clearly, then people won't feel like you're trying to talk over them. So instead of saying I believe in reparations now, reparations forever, a good old boy told me, he said, Big C, we know you want reparations, but instead of saying it so clear because it may scare people, you want to say you believe in reparations now. Maybe that works. Either way, I do the best I can. You can't please everybody, but I'm going to do my best, and I always do my best, and if my best is good enough, then may it stand. But I also want to say, I really want to add what I'm doing in my own personal life. I'm working on a commercial, and I've done commercials since I was back in college, and I want to do a commercial now, and I want to say, unlike most programs, when they do a commercial, they go into a studio, they do 29 takes. I don't do that. I do my commercials live. If I make a mistake, you hear it. If I don't make a mistake, you also hear that I don't make a mistake. But I want to say, you can go along with me. See if you can keep up, because I'm asking everybody in the universe, just like the crowd says, light the beam, light the beam. I want you to say the Big C commercial with the RDC team, a guide to protect, preserve, and transfer wealth, resource development consulting, the missing link with the law offices of Scott Thibodeau in conjunction with the law office of George Jones, the missing link, long-term care, solutions by the book, over 3 decades of experience, helping seniors get their benefits, Medicare and you, taking care of tomorrow. Healthcare in California is called Medi-Cal, all fair level war. Why would we follow your commercial, Big C? I'm glad you asked. Your family and spouse can avoid the spend down for nursing home costs. You can find out your options are promised to you, specialized to navigate and maximize the long-term care benefits, protection of your assets without a spend down. All paperwork and communication with all government agencies are handled by our staff of entitlement specialists. Ongoing consulting to provide updates as necessary. Benefits covering skilled nursing facilities, prescriptions, medical equipment costs, and more. Do you know anyone in dealing with benefits, medical prescriptions, and also medical equipment costs, skilled nursing homes, protection of your assets, including your home, thereby allowing you to leave a legacy for your family? Avoiding the nightmare of debt brought by the government's estate recovery program can be from 10 to 40%, and that's egregious. A one-time processing fee versus monthly insurance premiums for the rest of your life. Give that some praise. Oh, Big C, why would I need to protect my assets? Because if you don't, probate they got a will for you. where they don't protect your assets, they come after your assets, if that makes sense. You can do a lot of help for your family by having the trust. 800-772-8624, 800-772-8624, 800-772-8624. I want to tell you we have protection insurance coverage required by law, general liability, workers' compensation, lawyers specializing in living trust, Medicaid or Medi-Cal planning for long-term care, avoid probate, life insurance, veterans benefits, aid and attendance, pre-planning to avoid the look-back period, fixed assets, your bank account, checking account, savings account, money market account, certificates of deposit, life insurance with cash values, fixed index annuities. What about variable assets, real estate, qualified money, IRA, 401k, other investments? Avoid capital gains on the step-up basis. You buy a house for $100,000, and in 1 year, according to some brokers, it appreciates to $1 million. Well, that's a $900,000 capital gains. If you have your property in a trust, you can avoid the capital gains. Again, over 3 decades of experience. Attention business owners, find out your other options to protect what your insurance does not cover. Oh, BC, my insurance covers everything. You ever hear of the Aflac? Aflac is gap insurance. That's the duck. We don't have a duck on the Big C team. We eat ducks, if that makes sense to you. We protect your assets. And a duck cannot protect its own assets. That's why they end up on a lot of dinner menus. So how can they protect your assets? The RDC team, we don't end up on dinner menus. 800-772-8624, 800-772-8624, and find out how we can help you protect your assets. Give that some praise. Now, I did that commercial live. But see, that was more like an infomercial. Well, maybe it was an infomercial, but I do the best I can to get the information out there. You can't say that you hadn't heard about it when you hear it on Big C Sports Podcast. There's things I want to do before I get into sports, because I know you want to know who won the game. I'm going to tell you who won the game. The California Reparations Task Force won the game. A mind is a terrible thing to waste, and I want to make sure that I honor them. But before I even do that, I want to tell you the benefit of working with the RDC team and the Big C Sports. It's because of the endorsements. Oftentimes, I get people that call me and they say, can you refer me someone who can talk to me about estate planning, or sometimes they need a loan. But when anybody wants you to do business with them, ask them who endorses them. Oh, my best friend. Well, outside of your best friend, who else endorses you? You know who endorses the RDC team? Not only that, we have the endorsement of attorney George Jones, Esquire, chairman of the California Black Chamber of Commerce, also the California Black Chamber of Commerce Foundation. We have Mr. Leon Woods, resource development consultant, works with the top lobbyists in California. We have Miss Cheryl Brown. She's the chair of the California Commission on Aging. She endorses the RDC team. Not only that, we have the Mr. Ray Daly Cruz. He's the CEO of Resource Development Consulting. He has the endorsement of the CalPERS top lawmaker, the late Robert Carlson. He endorsed the RDC team, if that makes sense to you. We have the endorsement of Mr. Alex De La Cruz. He's the founder of American Veteran Benefits. He is part of the RDC team. You got to give that some praise, especially for you veterans, that you know you need your stuff and you know you need to get help. Also, the National Black Wall Street Project. I'm the co-chair of Northern California chapter with Big C Sports. I endorse the RDC team. Also, we have Double O Payout Committee for the National Black Wall Street Project and the consultant for RDC. I want to tell you there's so many people that are part of this push for reparations. I know you want to watch the game. I know you can't wait to light the beam. But you know, as they're lighting the beam on basketball, we have legislators right now in signing into law reparations, over 100 proposals for reparations. Do you hear about that on sports programs? No, why not? Because if it benefits African Americans, oftentimes they don't think we care. We don't walk around with jerseys saying reparations. We walk around with jerseys with our favorite sports teams. And many of our favorite sports teams, they're owned by people who can trace their family legacy back to the Homestead Act and to the tremendous wealth that was earned and built up by slavery, unpaid labor. So, of course, after a few centuries of bequeathing wealth, you may have the chance to own teams with all the land and property and business that you came in contact with. And then 100 years of Jim Crow that shut out black folks. And now we want to go and cheer for the beam? I want this beam I want you to cheer for this beam if that makes sense to you. It doesn't matter what color you are, because it's for good people. You know, decent people. You know, you people. As you standing up for the tip-off, I want to give praise to the chair of the California Reparations Task Force, Camila Moore. She's brilliant. I love giving her praise. I want to give praise to the Dr. Amos C. Brown, the vice chair of the California Reparations Task Force. He's brilliant. I love giving him praise. I want to give praise, and he was also on the Big C Sports podcast, if that makes sense to you. I also want to give praise to California Senator Stephen Bradford. I want to give him praise. He's part of the California Reparations Task Force. I want to give praise, and I met with him several times in his office and at Reparations Task Force. I want to give praise to Councilmember Monica Montgomery Steppe. She's brilliant. I love giving her praise. I want to give praise to Assembly Member Reginald Jones Sawyer. He's brilliant. I love giving him praise. I want to give praise to Dr. Shell Grills. She's brilliant. I love giving her praise. I want to give praise to her attorney, Lisa Holder. She's an expert in diversity, equity, and inclusion. I love giving her praise. I want to give praise to Dr. Javon Scott Lewis, professor at California Berkeley. He's brilliant. I love giving him praise. And I want to give praise to her attorney, Donald K. Tamaki. He's part of the California Reparations Task Force. I want to give him praise. I want to give him praise, because the mind is a terrible thing to waste. I want to also say there are people that are a part of what I've done with Big C Sports Podcast. I want to give praise to Double O, has her own economics awareness talk show called Let's Eat, and everybody loves to eat. She sent me Executive Order 13985. That was President Biden's first term in office, where he talked about making sure that we had opportunities for equity and inclusion for communities of color. That's usually when they mean that, they mean Black Americans. You know, the same group that was excluded for so many things when it comes to the development of this country. Furthering advancing racial equity and support for underserved communities. That's the federal government. That's the White House. I also want to say, she sent me this article on the United Nations. It says that strong leadership and political will are crucial to ensure reparatory justice for people of African descent. I love giving up praise. I'm going to give praise to her brother, Aleem Shabazz, who also filmed the California Reparations Task Force meeting at the Secretary of State building last year, and that would be up soon on the website, National Black Wall Street Project. I want to give it all praise. Well, that's my story, and I'm sticking with it. Before I get in to Light the Beam, it's an NBA, I want you to hear something that you should know as much as you know how many points your favorite basketball player scored. I got to say this, that I've talked to many people, scholars, and also people who are not scholars, if that makes sense to you. And there are times when people say, oh, Big C, I just want to give you some constructive criticism. You wasted your time talking about all that reparation stuff. Listen to what happened this month in San Francisco, California.
California is moving to consider reparations for slavery.
We'll just start here by signing this.
A California Reparations Task Force is making history with a major decision on who will receive compensation.
The descendants of slaves are standing in the shoes of their ancestors in fighting to complete this sacred political project.
What do we want? When?
My great-grandfather was a sharecropper who had 17 children and worked from sunup to sundown and died with absolutely nothing. I would hope that he would be proud and know that I stand on his shoulders, and there are no better shoulders to stand on.
After hours of testimony and debate, the group has voted 5-4 that reparations should be paid to descendants of black slaves who were living in the United States during the 19th century.
It's not just a study anymore. We are history in the making right here, right now.
This is groundbreaking work that they've done in the nation that has oftentimes denied its responsibility.
That's Dr. Shirley Weber. She is the Secretary of the State of California.
For slavery and the impact of slavery on the lives of others.
I think reparations could be a part of the solution because it would address historic acts of racism.
I would like to say that to my fourth great-grandparents who were born slaves, our time has come.
Reparations is alive as a discussion now. It's not going to end now. It's going to keep going until reparations is a reality.
Maxine Waters.
Folks may or may not be ready, but we're here now.
I think our mantra has to be, this time it has to be different. This time it must be different.
Donald
California has at least
Javon Scott Lewis
that it is different. And I I think I'm calling on Californians to remember their difference in that way and to do something.
Reparations is not charity.
Senator Stephen Bradford.
It's not a gift. It is what was promised. It's what is owed, and it's something that is 160 years overdue to African Americans who built this country.
This was ours and it was taken. We gave my great grandmother and grandfather pennies on the dollar, and this is what you want to do, continue that narrative? It's time for repayment.
Big C Sports Podcast.
I will begin calling the roll with the chair.
Present.
Chair Moore is present. Vice Chair Brown.
Present.
Welcome, members of the public, to the California Reparations Task Force last hearing before we sunset July 1.
Today is historic. America,
Attorney General Rob Bonta.
More than a place. It's an ideal and an aspiration to be better, to be fairer, to be more just, to be stronger, to be more inclusive. And today we have moved closer to becoming a more perfect union.
After 2 years and more than a dozen meetings held across the state of California, the first in the nation state-level reparations task force concluded its work, a painstaking process that often tapped into the pain of the descendants of chattel slavery in America.
This will begin a right or wrong that began centuries ago.
But apology alone, as a standalone, is not enough.
And this reparations will be making right the many centuries of wrong.
The question of making it right, of repairing the harm, is now before the California State Legislature.
And I hope California, through the legislation that we introduce as a Black Caucus, will hope, like you say, move forward to address
Senator
those
Stephen
wrongs
Bradford.
that still affect African Americans in this state and in this nation today.
State Senator Stephen Bradford is a part of the California Legislative Black Caucus, making history by introducing more than a dozen bills in a reparations package, an effort he believes will be a long, multi-year fight.
Hi, my name is Ronald.
Think about that. As people talk about what they want to do for sports,
we wouldn't be the great nation that we are today if it wasn't for 400 years of free labor.
Senator Stephen Bradford.
We need to recognize that. Many of the largest landholders in this country benefited from slavery, and having those individuals work that land. We wouldn't lead the nation or the world, I should say, and agriculture and textiles and tobacco. All of that was built on the backs of slavery, and people need to understand that the individuals who have benefited from generational wealth in this country, there is a nexus, whether directly or indirectly, to slavery.
I stand here representing the nameless, the faceless, people you will never meet, whose lives were impacted by the work of this task force. I stand here representing generations of Black cooks, criers, Weathers, Rogers, Spurlocks, who were enslaved and never paid, who were overworked, beaten, raped, stolen from, lied to, who never got the promise of 40 acres and a mule.
Answer my question. What do we want? When? What do we...
I'm 78 years old. I don't want to wait 2 or 3 years, and so we need to get paid now.
We need to be repaired, restored, and repaid for all the pain and suffering that we have endured.
That work was made possible by California Assembly Bill 3121. It was signed into law by the state's governor, Gavin Newsom, in 2020.
It's just remarkable that we haven't established these frameworks and these criteria in the past, but I'm very pleased nonetheless that we're finally here.
In the shadow of the global movement and protest for Black lives, sparked by the murder of George Floyd by Minneapolis police officers. That bill formed a 9-member state reparations task force.
What the bill AB 3121 set in motion was not only studying slavery, but what it noted as slavery's lingering effects. Slavery was a policy. It was an economic policy, it was a development policy. And what we do know is that from that time till now, there have been many policies that have been taken up and put in place that have similarly impacted the experience of African Americans in this country, in the state of California.
Those anti-Black policies are the reason the task force makes the argument that California should be on the hook for reparations, despite entering the Union as a free state in 1850, a decade before the Civil War.
How do you draw that through line from
the vestiges, right, of slavery,
the
discrimination that black folks still experience in the United States today.
Although slavery was formally abolished via the 13th Amendment and the Emancipation Proclamation, there are lingering badges and incidents of slavery that still negatively impact the African American community. From racial terror to political disenfranchisement, mental and physical harm and neglect, it's impossible to identify every single harm or atrocity against the African American community, but the task force does our best to describe the 12 major areas of systemic discrimination.
These are outlined in the California Task Force's 1,100-page final report. The report documents a painful and racist history of the unequal and often ugly treatment of black people in this country. First, stolen from the continent of Africa and sold into chattel slavery. After emancipation, it was 100 years of Jim Crow segregation and discrimination, and a post-civil rights movement era that has promised equal access to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness that has fallen short in delivering.
Black people, we've had over our hellish moments, our horrors, and hardships.
Reverend Amos Brown, Vice Chair.
Work with people of goodwill, of common sense, and critical thought, and work together. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., my teacher, said once, if America is organized to do bad things against the Negro, America needs to organize to do good things with the Negro for the welfare and advancement of an oppressed people. That's what reparations is all about.
They like this strike. I just love saying that part. I could go on and on and on. I think everyone should watch it. It's on ABC 10 out of San Francisco. And it's more important than light the beam. Light the beam. Light the beam. I'll play you a little bit more. This is Big C Sports Podcast.
Would introduce H.R. 40 in the U.S. House of Representatives for the first time in 1989.
So all the momentum that we see in California now, though some might say it just started a couple of years ago, it did not. It built upon that strategy that in Cobra, in concert with Congressman John Conyers, initiated back in those early days.
The push for repair in the form of reparations is as old as the harm, America's original sin of slavery. In January of 1865, formerly enslaved African Americans were promised 40 acres and a mule by General Sherman in Special Field Order 15 as the Civil War winded down. Union troops confiscated land from South Carolina to Florida from former slave owners in the Confederacy to turn over to freed black people. That promise fell to pieces with the assassination of President Abraham Lincoln. His successor, President Andrew Jackson, signed an order to return the land back to its white owners. The push for repair would not end there.
From Queen Mother Audley Moore in the 1960s, the Black Panther Party in the late 60s and early 70s, and now to contemporary grassroots reparationists who are fighting for reparations, not only to honor their ancestors, but also to acknowledge the enduring legacies of slavery that still impact us today.
While national legislation has stalled, California is making history. The task force releasing an unprecedented more than 100 recommendations for reparations in its final report.
The position of the California Reparations Task Force
Attorney Down
is that this has to be a long-standing commitment, an intervention to actually dismantle the systems that created this outcome in the first place. In other words, the harm was literally centuries in the making. So the repairs have to be long in the implementation.
And now those recommendations are turning into legislation, something these black Californians who can draw their lineage back to an enslaved African brought to America say is long overdue.
I think that I've been motivated by my ancestors. I am the daughter of Hetty, granddaughter of Hilda, great-granddaughter of Lavinia, and I'm not sure I had a choice in this. My grandmother was part of the lineage system. She was 5 years old, working in a household for others, got to watch the children in that household go to school while she didn't get to go to school. So I do this for her. I do this all the way down to my youngest grandchild, because this is a national movement. We're laying the blueprint for not only the nation, but for the world.
Let me begin also by saying what a great honor it has been to serve on this task force.
Senator Stephen Bradford, on the other hand, is not convinced that his colleagues are taking this discussion around reparations seriously.
Many of them haven't read it, but it's interesting. I mean, folks express support for reparations, but then when you start drilling down, it's a lot of still hemming and hawing, and I wait and see.
So you have the feeling that the majority of your colleagues haven't even turned the pages on the executive summary?
Not at all. And I it's a large read. I understand that. I think it speaks volumes of who we are, not only as a state, but who we are as a nation. And I mean, it's still the denial. It's still many that want to say, oh, that was so long ago, get over it. But it wasn't.
In 2024, Senator Bradford and Assemblymember Joan Sawyer, working with the California Legislative Black Caucus, introduced a package of more than a dozen bills to create the framework for reparations in California. If passed, the bills would tackle a number of things, like create a Freedmen Affairs Agency to oversee administering reparations passed by both chambers and signed into law by the governor. Eligible recipients would have to trace their lineage to an African American enslaved in the country. Promote black home ownership by providing down payment assistance and property tax relief. Compensate families displaced by racially motivated land taking through eminent domain and other tactics, like the Johnsons in Russell City. Expand access to career technical education. Provide higher education financial aid for redline communities. Prohibit involuntary servitude for incarcerated people and restrict solitary confinement in prisons. Expand and protect access to healthy foods in under-resourced neighborhoods. And issue a formal apology by the state for human rights violations and crimes against humanity on enslaved Africans and their descendants.
They like this strike. I love talking about reparations. I know you want to know who won the game, but this is so important to me. All my heart, mind, body, and soul. It's about good people, and we got to have good people step up and make a difference in reparations.
Let's start with that apology. Do you think that there's the political will here in the Capitol to even get an apology passed?
I think there is a will. I think we have a governor who understands the importance of apology now, and I hope our colleagues in the legislature, both in the Assembly and the Senate, will see the importance of that as well.
If reparations in California stops there with the apology, what will it say to the people here in California?
I'd say we're not serious. I mean, it has to go beyond the apology. The apology is just the first step.
How do you make the case to your colleagues in the Senate to get behind any of the legislation that goes beyond the apology, right, to say that we need to put some money aside?
Yeah, it's going to be a tough year because of the budget, but I've been here at the toughest times. In 2009, 2010, the worst, economic crisis since the Great Depression, and we found ways to fund those things that we said were a priority.
Do you feel as though you have the support of Governor Gavin Newsom in this?
The governor has been very open about it. He referenced reparations in his budget release a few weeks ago and said he has read the report. So that in and of itself is encouraging to me. Again, it's going to be a real opportunity for not only the governor, but my colleagues as well to demonstrate real profiles and courage here.
I'm telling you, if you want the vote, you got to look at reparations, voting for people who vote for reparations. That's important to me. I'm going to let you hear that part, but I want to say one more thing before I get into some sports, because that's more important to me than touchdown, home run, three-point play. Old man Willie, he's going all the way. Listen to the most eloquent speaker in the history of the United States.
There is a notable absence from the package of bills being proposed that many who attended the task force's meetings have demanded.
We want direct cash payments, just like how the stimulus were sent out.
Direct cash payments for Black Californians that can trace their lineage to an enslaved African American.
Earlier you mentioned you out and about running into constituents.
Reginald Jones Sawyer.
They very much seem invested in this work, and some of them even saying, cut the check. Mm-hmm. What is your response to those folks?
The reparations is more than just a check. The amount of
positivity that's going to come out from the non-monetary things will outweigh the check.
What happens to the bills these legislators propose remains to be seen, but both men, serving their last terms in office, are ready to continue this centuries-long struggle for reparations and repair.
As a descendant of one of the Little Rock Nine, when the 9 kids that integrated Central High School in 1957, 9 historic kids who battled racism to get into high school. And they had to send out the National Guard, the 101st Airborne, to escort them to school every day. They were threatened, beaten, crosses burned in their family homes, and they stood up to that. It was their sacrifice that got us here. The California Legislative Black Caucus knows that we now need to do that same type of sacrifice and commitment, not only for African Americans in California, but nationally and internationally, because all eyes are on us right now.
Thank you. This resolution is approved, same House, same call. The resolution is adopted unanimously.
When I see the way that this is spreading,
Attorney Lisa Holder.
when I see that a spark has been lit, and that people, when you talk to them about this repairing the harm framework, you see the fire. And that tells me that we will prevail.
Let's be clear about what reparations means.
A growing number of states, counties, even cities have set up groups to study the lingering effects of slavery and anti-black racism. The creation of these groups is not guaranteed support for reparations, however.
And to those who think that even having this conversation is unfair or wrong, I say it would be wrong not to have it.
Governor
There has been some momentum in recent years. In 2020, California was the first state to create a task force to study the harms of the state's anti-black policies and develop a plan to make those affected and their descendants whole. In 2021, Evanston, Illinois became the first city in the country in modern history to pay out some form of reparations, $25,000 to eligible black residents for home repairs. 16 lucky residents received the money out of more than 100 applicants. Funds were raised in part by a cannabis tax. In 2022, the city and county of San Francisco became the first major U.S. city to study the effects of anti-black racism and released an extensive plan to repair those harms. 3 other counties, Alameda in the San Francisco Bay Area, Fulton County, Georgia, and Shelby County, Tennessee, have developed task forces. Nearly a dozen cities from Los Angeles, Philadelphia, Detroit, St. Paul, Minnesota, Boston, and Providence have done the same. In 2024, New York is poised to become the second state to form a task force to study and develop reparations. That's why Lisa Holder of the California Reparations Task Force believes public education will be key.
So the public education campaign is going to be critical.
Holder launched the Alliance for Reparations, Reconciliation, and Truth with the help of some of the other task force members to build a public awareness campaign. So far, more than 500 local, state, and national organizations have signed on to show their support of the Reparations Task Force.
Obviously, from a numbers game, it is mission critical, right? Because if you're only 5% of the population, it's going to be very difficult to get the legislators to pay attention to you. So you need a critical mass of the public to stand behind and lift up reparations. And in order to get a critical mass, that's going to have to be across sectors, across races, across religions, and across issues.
And that could be difficult work, as poll numbers show Californians and Americans at large aren't exactly tripping over themselves to support reparations. Despite this mixed bag of poll results, Holder remains clear-eyed about the task at hand.
I think much of the polling is actually very positive and encouraging, frankly. Now the work really begins, because now it's time to educate the public and hopefully mobilize the public and actually getting those 115 policy proposals that are contained in the last 150 pages of this book, to turn those into reality.
Martin Luther King, we had a conversation a couple days ago about handouts and how these right-wing memes, these Republican memes, have infiltrated the Democratic debate to suggest that, ending welfare as we know it, all those kind of things are somehow, great and noble things, when we're not dealing with the underlying problem, which is that there's no economic opportunity there because of insane trade policies and because of Reaganomics. And Martin Luther King spoke to this. Jim and Shane, this is clip number 4. Martin Luther King spoke to this sometime back in the early 60s. And I thought this was a really interesting quote. Here he is.
At the very same time that America refused to give the Negro any land, through an act of Congress, our government was giving away millions of acres of land in the West and the Midwest, which meant that it was willing to undergird its white peasants from Europe with an economic floor. But not only did they give the land, they built land-grant colleges with government money to teach them how to farm. Not only that, they provided county agents to further their expertise in farming. Not only that, they provided low interest rates in order that they could mechanize their farms. Not only that, today many of these people are receiving millions of dollars in federal subsidies not to farm, and they are the very people telling the black man that he ought to lift himself by his own bootstraps. And this is what we are faced with. And this is the reality. Now, when we come to Washington, in this campaign, we are coming to get our check.
From his speech, The Two Nations of Black America. And it's absolutely brilliant. And the next time some white person talks about, well, I pulled myself up by my bootstraps and my family did too, especially the Bundy boys. I mean, here's Martin Luther King, the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., talking about how basically whites stole the West from the Indians with the complete, and didn't just steal it. I mean, murdered them murdered the Indians in the process, and did not give any of these benefits to African Americans for 100 years in this country. It's a strong case for reparations or some variation on it, for rebuilding our cities, for doing right after having done wrong for so many centuries. It is a very, very strong case for that.
Light the beam! Light the beam! Light the beam! For reparations now, reparations forever! And so I know that to me is so important. I just wanted to people that follow Big C Sports on 29 podcast platforms, on the top 100 programs, out of 250,000 on the iHeartRadio platform, and many other platforms. Reparations are going to happen. But imagine when we put the same kind of passion into reparations as we put in the touchdown, home run, three-point play. Old man Willie, he's going all the way. And ironically, none of our professional sports team owners are descendants of child slavery. Now you got Big C's NBA basketball. As I said, none of the NBA owners are NFL owners, are Major League Baseball owners, are descendants of child slavery, as you can't wait to stand up for the tip-off. But I do want to say some NBA basketball tonight. What did they say? Tonight's the night. The great Rod Stewart. But the 64-team win in Boston. I think Boston obviously has the best record in the NBA, but of course, it doesn't mean they're going to have the NBA championship at the end of the season. But they ran away with the league's best record, the defending champion Denver Nuggets, a group that won 57 games, and a young bunch of good boys from the Oklahoma City Thunder are trying to make some noise. Who's the number 1 seed was no fluke. A trio of Villanova alums in New York who turned the Knicks into a real contender. And then once again, there's LeBron James. LeBron James. The NBA playoffs are about to begin with the Celtics and the Nuggets heavy favorites. And ironically, there's still a Curry involved in the NBA playoffs. It's not Steph Curry, it's Chocolate Curry of Big C Sports. They lightning strike. I told you Curry was still in the playoffs, but they're about to begin. The Celtics and the Nuggets heavy favorites. at least according to some of the sports books, to collide in the finals. No shortage of teams have realistic belief that they can win the whole thing as well. After a 7-month ramp up through training camp, a preseason, the regular season, the inaugural NBA Cup, and then a play-in tournament, the league finally wakes up on Saturday with 16 teams left to chase the Larry O'Brien Trophy. Come Saturday, there are 15 other teams that want to have the chance to do the same thing. I'm telling you, Denver looks good in the Western Conference, and I still like the LA Clippers. But I can't look too far past those good boys from Dallas, and kind of an upset team. If they can get their baskets to fall, the Sacramento Kings can light the beam on anybody. When the Nuggets began, the Nuggets with the most of last season's core back this year, including probable NBA MVP, the Joker, Nikola Jokic. They're trying to become the 8th franchise to win back-to-back titles. They'll open their quest against the Lakers. And LeBron James, who's seeking a 5th NBA title, has never hidden the fact that he's ready to play no matter who it is. He's 39 years old. He's the league's oldest active player, an all-time scoring leader, seeking a 5th NBA title, and he's not even trying to pace himself. That makes sense to him. So round 1 begins Saturday for 4 games. Orlando at Cleveland, and then Phoenix at Minnesota, Philadelphia at New York, and the Los Angeles Lakers at the Denver Nuggets, defending NBA champions on Sunday. 4 more game 1s away, Chicago or Miami at Boston, Dallas at the LA Clippers, Indiana at Milwaukee, and Sacramento or New Orleans at Oklahoma City. I'm going to go with Sacramento since the good old boy Williamson is out of that game. The Thunder, who won 22 games 3 seasons ago, and then 24 games the year after that, those days are long gone already. 40 wins last season showed the potential, and 57 wins this season with no full-time starter over age 25. You know, OKC, I still think they'll get bounced in the playoffs because experience matters, if that makes sense to you. But it means a little more how we got here for sure. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, the Thunder guard, who is a legit MVP candidate, averaging 30.1 points per game this season. At the end of the day, it's home court advantage, and I guess we have to wait until the finals. All that put aside, when you think about some of the great players in the NBA, they're young, they might be brash, but they certainly are a lot of fun. You have the Thunder's guard, Jalen Williams. That good boy can play. Ask why he wasn't wearing his division title shirt when the Thunder clinched the #1 seed, and he said the leather jacket cost a lot. He's still trying to get to the point where he could just be a consistent player. The Oklahoma City Thunder were expected to be in the position. They were not expected to be here. They were given 100-1 odds. 100 people, and people were laughing. Winning the NBA championship? I'm not knocking them. I just think that lack of experience will catch up to them, but I've been wrong before. Now, Boston is a very different breed of cat, if that makes sense to you. Much was expected from the Boston Celtics. The late Johnny Moss, Havlicek inbounds to Russell. Russell throws over to Bird. Bird over to Danny Ainge. Danny Ainge and Jason Tatum. Jason Tatum for 3! I'm telling you, Boston's a good team, and I think they will get to the Eastern Conference Championship. Whether they get to the finals, you might have some good boys that have a contest with them, but I think they're going to win the East. That's just my opinion, and I'm sticking with it. At the same time, all Boston did this season was put up the 5th best record in franchise history, which is a big deal for the good old boys from Beantown, for any team that has an even bigger deal when the team is as storied as the Boston Celtics under the late Johnny Moss. Well, think about this. Of the 4 Boston teams that had better regular season records, they went on to win the NBA titles. You can't expect that if you're going to be a 64-win team. Celtics president Brad Stevens says that that's a really hard threshold to meet, no matter how good you are, no matter how well organized you are. From a coaching standpoint, it's players that make big-time plays, and that's what they need for the Boston Celtics. How many options do you have playing from that standpoint? There's no apparent weakness with the Boston Celtics, who finished the regular season ranked #1 in offensive rating, #2 in points per game, #3 in defensive rating, and then #5 in points allowed per game. The great Jason Tatum for 3! The great Jaylen Brown and Kristaps Porzingis all finished averaging at least 20 points per game. Only 2 other Celtics have had 3 20-point scorers in a season, and they added the great Drew Holiday, a United States Olympian this summer, just like Jason Tatum in the offseason to help anchor a defense built for this time of year. Everybody has the right mindset. says Celtic guard Derek White, and they're looking forward to the playoffs. At the same time, it's a make-and-miss league. You still got to keep in mind guys like, they're going to open without King Giannis Antetokounmpo, but you got to look at the Milwaukee Bucks. I know I like the great Doc Rivers, even though some people say they have to draft their boys. And then you have the Orlando Magic. They take on Cleveland, a team that hasn't won a playoff series without LeBron James since 1993. That's a tough to overcome. So odds are it'll be either Boston, Oklahoma City, Denver, New York, Milwaukee, maybe Minnesota winning the title. Since 1984, 39 of the 40 NBA champions have entered the playoffs seeded 1, 2, or 3 in their conference. That's important. It's been unpredictable this year. At the same time, it's a make-and-miss league. If you look at the West, I love the way De'Aaron Fox plays in Sacramento. And also, at the same time, Harrison Barnes, but he can get hot. But they have a good old guy, Domas Sabonis, who's a double-double expert. And Mike Brown, who's had championships before. He knows how to get it done. I just light the beam, light the beam. We can talk about light the beam. I love at that part in when they say light the beam, because we're in the same city with the Reparations Task Force. And you would think that more and more focus would be put on the Reparations Task Force in the capital city. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to talk about reparations. Big C Sports does it. And I think if more people catch on to it the same way we watch basketball, I think it'd be great for everybody, because it's the right thing to do. I know you want to spend your hard-earned money going to watch a game. At the end of the game, what do you have to show for it? Less money in your checking account. Because it costs a lot of money to go to these games. Reparations trying to give you money. And again, for you black Americans, I can't wait to stand in line for the tip-off. There's no owner of an NBA, Major League Baseball, or NFL football team that's descendants of chattel slavery. You may have Magic Johnson that has a percentage of the Washington Commanders, but at the same time, he doesn't own them. He just doesn't. Michael Jordan may have a percentage of ownership in a team in Charlotte, but he doesn't own the team. And that's what I want to say. For all of us who think about just playing touchdown, home run, three-point play, old man Willie, he's going all the way. Google California Reparations Task Force and share it with your friends. No matter what color you are, if you believe in doing the right thing is always the right thing to do. That's my story, and I'm sticking with it. As I always tell you, if you're going to drink, don't drive. If you're going to drive, don't drink. Because mothers against drunk drivers are mad, and fathers against drunk drivers are mad. It's one of the easiest things not to do. You can call Uber, you can call Lyft, you can walk it off, you can sleep it off, but don't let someone you love get behind the wheel of a car and start driving after they've been drinking. The life we say may be your own or somebody that you love. That's my story, and I'm taking with it. Well, you know what time it is. Back in the day, there's a man known by the name of Drew Boudini Brown. He's known as Muhammad Ali's right-hand man. He would always tell Ali, you float like a butterfly, and you sting like a bee. Rumble, young man, rumble. He said, with all you got to use, how can you lose? Ali said, I'm so pretty, I can't possibly be beat. And every time I listen to Big C Sports, it makes me want to say reparations now, reparations forever. That's my story, and I'm sticking with it. As my beautiful mother always says, that's never ever an excuse for racism or domestic violence. No man, woman, or child should ever have to go through that crap on their own. If somebody's hitting you, call 911. If somebody's slapping you, call 911. If somebody's pulling your hair, call 911. Call 911 and let them deal with it. Don't put up with that crap. That's my story, and I'm sticking with it. As I always say, I love giving homage and paying homage to my beautiful family legacy. On my beautiful mother's side, my great-grandparents, my great-grandmothers, my great-grandfathers, my grandmothers, my grandfathers, my beautiful mama, the most beautiful mama in the history of the universe. I can always consider my mama, always saying rise and shine. I love my mama with all my heart, mind, body, and soul. On my father's side, I love my dad with all my heart, mind, body, and soul. My beautiful brother Ty, with that bombastic voice, sound like thunder and lightning when Ty speaks. Love Ty with all my heart, mind, body, and soul. My beautiful daughter Daisy, the most beautiful daughter in the history of the universe. College graduate, 2 degrees with honors, in 3.5 years from a major university. You can be anything you want to be, Daisy. Just trust God. Always do the best you can, and always trust God. No weapon formed against you will prosper. Isaiah 54:17. I love it with all my heart, mind, body, and soul. My beautiful, handsome son, Malcolm, the most handsome son in the history of the universe. college student, very smart, every night, a good man. I love you with all my heart, mind, body, and soul. Always trust God. You can be anything you want to be. Always believe, always believe, always believe. I love you with all I have. And then Big C, all that wealth and knowledge over the years, always saying you got to believe, you got to believe, you got to believe, saying let's get ready to rumble. I love saying welcome to the show, ESPY nominated Big C Sports Podcast. I have no scripts. That's pretty obvious, Big C. I have no three-way teleprompters. I have no producer in my ear. All I got is my higher self. And I like doing the right thing. And anything I say, you can Google it. You know, I'm very passionate about sports and reparations. And I want to pay homage to President Abraham Lincoln and President Martin Luther King. Well, we can say President Big C. Let's sign reparations now. Sign reparations forever. You heard the California Reparations Task Force talk about it on Channel 7 in San Francisco, ABC. They said sign reparations now. Sign reparations forever. Come on and say it like your heart, mind, body, and soul believes in it. The same way you want to light the beam. Light the beam. Sign reparations now. Sign reparations forever. I thank you. I appreciate you. And I hope that you have a super fantastic day.